All right. Well, hello. Thanks for the opportunity to present this video for all you guys. My name is Doug Niemela here at the Park in Minneapolis, regional park here. They're hanging out near the dog park. So if you're hearing them barking in the background, we'll just go with that. So times I've been interacting with somebody completely different than me. Recently, I work at a community co-working space for my full-time job, and it allows me to interact with folks from a lot of different backgrounds that come through and get to have great conversations with them. Recently, I was at a happy hour that the community had sponsored and ended up chatting with a gentleman who is a recently returned Army vet from Afghanistan, and he is working on a project which he provides security and personal safety training to folks, all walks of life, and things like that. We actually had a great conversation. He's an individual, from a small town in Mississippi, ended up in Minneapolis, but now, he's really had a different life than I have, the way he grew up and being in the Army and everything like that. So we had a great conversation. I think one of the interesting things that I'm taking out of that, and this is that really there are a lot more similarities than differences in people, and the idea that being able to find those similarities is super important, and that's been one of the great opportunities I've had to interact with people different than myself. Fantastic. All right. Well, the thing that I'm super obsessed with right now is playing Dungeons and Dragons and tabletop gaming. I've been doing that for a number of years now, but recently I've gotten into actually being the guy running the show, the Dungeon Master, if you will. I've been running a little campaign with some friends of mine that we've been playing with for a while, a couple months now. It's been a lot of fun kind of getting in, learning the game mechanics, and being the one kind of crafting the world in which they interact and get to play around with. The one that I'm actually doing, though, that is really the most rewarding, where I've been really obsessed recently, is getting my little 12-year-old nephew involved. He is on the autism spectrum, and this summer he met a bunch of buddies at a place called Camp Awesome, and so I've been actually working with them and playing them, being their dungeon master for a game, and learning how to interact with him and his friends that are kind of all up and down the spectrum has been super rewarding, really challenging. How am I pursuing that? Really just kind of engaging with my sister, the parents of the other little guys, and also just doing a lot of research online, finding out kind of what does it really mean, what is their worldview, how can I best interact with them, and just getting to know the little dudes. And they're pretty awesome once you can kind of get past some of the quirks and everything like that. So that's actually been my recent obsession. Yep.
Who do you think?
Really, I've been very impressed recently with some progressive faith leaders around the country. I think in the past there's been a lot of work in that field where folks work with their congregations and do things like that, kind of not necessarily kind of behind the scenes. And I've really seen a lot of folks step forward and be more public in their support for different policies that are coming out and protesting against such things. In fact, a good friend of mine, Dave Freeman, who is a big volunteer in our campaign, his brother was actually one of the faith leaders that went down to Charlottesville, Virginia, during the protests down there, and they actually formed a human shield wall separating the two groups of protesters down there, and really putting themselves on the line in amazing ways, and really using their power and their credibility to really bring this issue forward to a lot of people and speak in a language that we haven't necessarily been hearing quite as much from in the past. All right, so one of the big things I've been working on super hard, throughout my career, been working in a lot of extracurriculars, working on things like social justice issues, voters' rights, things like that, working with our local progressive DFL party here in Minneapolis and around the state. But recently what I've been working on as an individual is something I'm trying to put together, a little side project, a little side hustle, if you will, called One Bowl of Joy, Please. Little bite-sized bits of happiness for people in their everyday world. Really, this just kind of started out around the concept that, in today's society and with everything that's going on in this world, there needs to be more joy out there and ways for people to find it, easy, consumable bites, if you will. So what I've been working on is kind of working on a little script, putting that together, and going to start doing kind of man-on-the-street interviews with people, getting their little stories, anything from 30 seconds to, 2.5, 3, 4, 5 minutes, and really just kind of finding out a way, and I'm working really hard to figure out, what's the best way to get those out into the world. some sort of a podcast, some sort of a feed, website where people can just come in and download different stories, and really just giving folks like just a little bit of a taste of joy and hearing from other people what's super joyful in their world. You know, everything from like what we're doing here, playing with puppies at the dog park, or, you know, watching a kid take their first step, or, you know, honestly, it could be something as simple as, you know what, I hit all the green lights on my way to work today. You know, what are those little things, and trying to find those and draw them out of people to remind them what a great place this is, what an amazing world we live in, and while a lot of bad stuff is going on, we do have much more in common with each other, and there's a lot of joy out there still today. Yeah, you know, I think the big thing that the outdoor industry is working towards, and, you know, a lot of what I talked about in my first application for this project, is how to really bring the voice of the outdoor industry in a big advocacy role, really using the branding and the folks, you know, that have worked super hard to get the credibility that they have, to raise those voices up and to really affect and make big changes on a policy side, to really make sure not only do we have the great public lands to play in and utilize all of the equipment and gear and everything like that that we all love and use, but also to really make those changes and get those places accessible to people that may not have rightfully, or maybe do not have as much access as others. So really looking forward to working with the outdoor industry in that manner as well. All right, so social media and my online stuff, I've been really into podcasts recently, listening to everything from S-Town to How Did This Get Made and things like that. But far and away, my favorite is a podcast called Men in Blazers. It's two gentlemen from England that live in New York, and they just talk about social commentary issues wrapped around British Premier League soccer. And the way they use Instagram and Facebook, Twitter, all the different platforms to really bring forward those messages and those conversations is fantastic. Super funny. Not only is it a sport I love, but the commentary they have with it is just spot on, and the humor is amazing. And also they bring in a little bit of social commentary as well that helps out a lot as well too. So go watch it if you haven't seen it, and listen.